Hey everybody, Kale here. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be continuing part 2 of our lessons learned series around New Age spirituality, law of attraction, manifestation, and that whole realm of things. Okay, and so this particular video is going to focus on how fast things actually manifest and what it actually takes. Okay, and it's a perfect piggyback to our first video, which was focused on, you know, if I resonate with a reading, be that a tarot reading, oracle card reading, maybe some other type of intuitive reading, if I resonate deeply with this reading, but then nothing happens, like what was said in the reading doesn't happen, like what's that about? Why didn't something happen? That's what we covered in part 1. All right, and so this part 2 is going to be around what it takes for those manifestations to occur. All right, and so if you didn't get a chance to check out video 1, I did create a playlist called Lessons Learned, so you'll be able to find that there. All right, so let's settle in. Yes, okay. Just to start things off, I'm going to name this that things can happen in any number of ways at any point in time. All right, timeline collapses happen, it's quantum physics, you know, alignment, shifts, all types of things can happen for things to fall into place, you know, instantaneously. Yes. And if one finds themselves in a place of needing it to happen immediately or really quickly, that gives us, that's a warning sign of like, let's rethink what's going on here. Okay, and while in a dire situation, in a desperate situation, needing something to happen immediately, I mean, that can be a real thing. That urgency, particularly around survival, that's real. And I want to focus a bit more on the aspect where you're not thinking of it necessarily as survival, and it's just like, no, but I can do this, or I really want it to happen quickly. It can, and so it should. You know, if I just align right, or this, that, or the other thing, or heal, or whatever, the thing is, you know, where you want a thing to drop in quickly instead of doing all the other like hard work to get something done. Okay, that's what I'm focused in on. Okay, so the first thing becomes like, why do you need it to happen so quickly? Right? Like what is that sense of urgency? What's going on there that it has to be an instantaneous manifestation? So taking a look at that, right? And that can speak to something that maybe is going on in a deeper way under the hood. Okay. What, if anything, are you trying to avoid? Like what are you staying away from? What do you not want to do? Okay. What truth are you trying to bypass? And if you're anything like me, if you are currently having or have had an experience like I had when I was first navigating this stuff, there was a reality for me that I was like, well, like, I mean, I don't want to have to do X, Y, Z. Like, that is daunting, or that's going to take too long, like, or that doesn't resonate, doesn't work for me. Like, I don't want to do that. And so that was like a hard line. I ended up having a hard line around like hard work and effort in a way that I hadn't had before. Because see, I was coming from a place where it was like, well, yeah, no, like that's the thing. Like you work really hard and like that's just what you do. You do whatever it takes to do a thing. And like that's the paradigm. And then entering this other paradigm and this other, other forms of spirituality, it became like, oh, well, wait, no. Like it doesn't require hard work, right? That's what's kind of being sold is, it doesn't require hard work. You don't have to do all of this effort, you know, just align and things will fall into place. There is absolutely truth to alignment, and there's also a lot more as well. And I'm going to dive deeper into that. Okay. So what truth are you trying to bypass, and like what is your resistance? So tuning in around what is going on there is going to be helpful. Okay? Because so often when we want or need things to happen quickly, again, we find ourselves in a desperate situation ultimately. Somewhere there's something desperate about our situation, and where the pain of what the options are that are in front of us are just too great to move forward on. So here's a thing that I could do, or here's what it seems like I need to do to improve my situation or to get out of this situation. But like, I can't, like, this is like, actually, I feel a lot of pain inside of me as I go to move into that. And that's my resistance. The resistance is, this is too painful. And that's a real thing. I'm convinced that most of the time when it comes to this type of thing and someone's getting really frustrated and there's a lot of desperation, I think that it's less about a laziness, which can be the perception from others, and it is most often about a deep, like, emotional or unhealed pain, or something that's just, something is off, and not like in a super negative way or like bad, but something, there's pain there, and that's speaking to something. That's information, right? So I do believe it is that more than anything else. But what happens is that then we become desperate to find another way. We could become desperate to find a less painful way. And we start locking into one option, and aspects of like law of attraction principles or manifestation principles and aspects of New Age spirituality. I want to be a little bit more mindful to, like, as I'm lumping, I don't want to lump that all together per se, but I think you're probably catching my drift around aspects of it, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater at all. Just naming certain elements that I personally find problematic or have just had a different experience around. Okay, everything I'm saying is coming from, again, these are my lessons learned. All right, and so what happens in order to kind of bypass that pain and look for something else? Like, we lock into whatever that other option is, and it syncs up with aspects of manifestation principles, right? Around energy and alignment and like being in a certain vibration and holding that and maintaining that, right? So we lock into this one way, this one option, and we end up building this like hardness around that, this tunnel vision that protects that line of thinking. Okay, and it's kind of disguised, like we disguise it, we convince ourselves, and it becomes easily disguised as, you know, we're holding the vision, right? We're holding the vision, we're maintaining a high vibration, we're locking in on it, there's no wiggle room, I must stay in this direction in order for it to manifest. It's like, becomes completely black and white, this or nothing, right? And so ultimately, what that really is it is spiritual bypassing. It's spiritual bypassing. It's trying to bypass the pain of what's coming up around other truthful elements. But it's so easy to get caught up in that for so long because of the language that is around this stuff. Okay, let's see here. I want to just make sure I'm staying on track. We don't want something else to be true. Like, we don't want it to be true that something else is required, okay? We don't want to have to do that thing that feels extraordinarily painful, and we're desperate to believe there's another way, okay? Yeah, okay. And so, taking a look here, something that I noticed as I continued watching videos, reading books, and just submerging within that paradigm, the language, was that it all actually said the same thing from what I've been told my whole life, okay? So the words and the languaging ends up being around like, decide what you want, know that you can have it, take action towards that vision, or take aligned action towards that vision, hold the vision against your like present circumstances and against the outer reality, like know like the truth, and hold that and keep going, and then watch it happen, watch reality mold to you, right? Like, though, that's the languaging around it, as opposed to, you know, again, with like reality molding to you, as opposed to this idea of like, well, you're continuously taking actions, putting yourself in situations. Well, this makes sense that reality and you are gonna like, if I choose to surround myself with dance and I choose to go take dance classes every night of the week and surround myself with dancers, all of a sudden, I mean, has reality molded to me that it's just I live in this dance reality, or have I also, like, yes, but I have chosen that, right? So there's like a both and I think sometimes the language can get like so elevated in a way that like kind of brings in this like kind of intoxicating supernatural element. Not that there aren't supernatural aspects or like this whole world is magical, yes, and and it can allow for some deception to occur, okay? And so because what do each one of those aspects, what can also be said, how can those also be phrased? Try this. Get clear on your dream. Know that it's possible to achieve it. Work hard towards your dream. Take those action steps. Be patient. Don't give up when things get hard. Watch your dreams come true. That's a lot less fancy and magical sounding, but it all kind of comes down to the same thing, which is like you have to show up for whatever it is that you want, right? Like, it's like become the person that they talk about. It's like you don't, I'm going to get into another video. That'll probably be the next one around, like you are what you attract, or you attract what you are, not what you want. That's what we'll talk about that one next. All right. But yes, so it again, it's not fancy, but it's the same thing, which is like just going for what you want and being patient with the process and not letting yourself get down by whatever else you're confronted with. It's kind of what it comes down to. All right. And so there's this notion, right, of wanting to bypass all of that, of what really becomes necessary. And the thing is, most of the time, a number of these folks, like some of the main voices in all this, are saying that in so many or not so many words. Okay. And again, and I'll speak to these elements of like alignment. And in fact, why don't I go ahead and just kind of jump to that right now, right? Because I imagine you might be saying like, okay, Kale, like I hear you on that, but like, what about the people who talk from their personal experience of like, I just did this and this thing happened and this is what I had to do. I think, and this speaks to a broader conversation, I think that there's a reality where sometimes on a path, there's just a way that things are going to occur for an individual, for whatever our experiences are, or if we believe in like lessons learned or soul blueprint, whatever that is. I also think sometimes there's different factors and conditions. It may be if you're listening to somebody who is, perhaps married or partnered, and let's say it's their partner that is making all of the income, and then they can like completely relax in that and then have all of this like time freedom and money freedom to like go and create. That is creating a different experience, right? Like that is a different element, right? Like there's just some factors that change, like, the nervous system being out of survival mode, for example, which also doesn't mean that there's other work, because that's the next part of what I want to speak to, which is just that for any given thing, there is likely some amount of mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual work. So for that person in that example that maybe is completely secure when it comes to finances already and has all this time, money, freedom, there also might be like some emotional things and some emotional quote unquote blocks, which I don't like using that word, but sometimes there's just a practical reality of two things: energy, and just like energy being dense and stagnant, and a release of that energy allows for new energy to come in. So there's just that energy in motion, so to speak, that emotion, right? And then other times there is there's a reality that like we may not take certain steps. Like let's say it's a self-esteem thing, right? And maybe the work, even though one may have like time, money, freedom, maybe they really have some traumatic past experiences going on, or just like, kind of a lot of negative like self-talk, and that keeps them from doing some things that they would otherwise do that would help something to move along, right? And so again, whether the work is physical and taking certain physical action, whether it's mental and working on that, like the psychology of it, whether it's emotional and healing emotional trauma, whether it's spiritual and really connecting and aligning spiritually to get in tune with your deepest, most authentic truth, and what you really, really want, like deep down, not what you think you want, not what you're trying to get, but what's actually true. That's a separate video probably. I need to make a note on that, because that's a whole nother thing. Because sometimes we're trying to manifest a thing that's like not actually at the core of what we want. So there's that. I'll do a separate video. But yeah, so there's just a number of things. And here's the other reality, even outside of all of that, again, which is sometimes things are just the thing. Like, it reminds me of just like dating and finding your person, right? I have a video on this already. I think it's called like, for the person who's still looking for their one or something like that, where it's like people can give you, as I'm sure, when you are single or if you're a single person right now, all of the things you should do, whether it's dating, stop dating, get on the apps, get off the apps, go put yourself in this situation, go do that, did it. Like, everyone's got their laundry list of like how it worked for them. This is the same with like this manifestation stuff. Everyone's going to share the story of how it worked for them. You may see an underlying truth and thread for all of these stories, no matter how different they are, or you may not. The reality to me is that sometimes there's just an appointed time when a thing is going to happen, no matter what you do. And sometimes there's just a way things are going to occur or happen, no matter what you do. You could be early. I want to say you could be late. I don't know about that. I'm not going to say that because I have not digested that, but I do resonate with this notion of being early at times when you're wanting something to happen. All right. And sometimes it's just not the thing to go after. Okay. And people have had that experience, say it's a person that you really had strong feelings for, really, really wanted to be with. And eventually you either those feelings left or you found someone else and you're like, oh my God, thank God that didn't happen. Okay. Good thing all those manifestation efforts didn't work with that person. Maybe they did and you learned you didn't really want it. Just saying, right? So there's all types of stuff around this, which is why prescriptions are hard and not always helpful because they don't always sync up with everyone. All right, checking my notes. So yes, let's see. So yes, quantum physics is real, timeline jumping and shifts, alignment is real, and those things can help us move along. Sometimes things will drop in quickly, other times it's going to take more. All right, if someone is wanting, like, think about it energetically. If somebody is wanting a drastic change, like a massive change from the trajectory of how things have been going so far, think about it like that momentum that's been carrying you. Okay, you want to go in the opposite direction. That's a lot of momentum, right? Going in the other way. So you've got to be able to come with that amount of force. Notice the word force. Come with that amount of force and be able to sustain it. You have to be able to maintain that all the way through, which is why so often and most often when you're coming back from this momentum, there might be this catch where you're like, okay, we're going to pivot. And then it might be like a slower integration, or there's like a catch where you're like, nope, I'm turning away, but it's gonna like pull you back with it a little bit, and it's gonna keep swinging, and you're gonna have this like back and forth, like, like that, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of a situation, or however many, until it's kind of more of that balance and equilibrium and integration. And if we have a stop point, now we can move like this, easier and more gently. All right. So it's not that things can't just swing back in the other, but it is less likely, I think the majority of the time, that things are going to go that way. That's why the like little bit over a longer period of time just tends to be easier on the nervous system, not because things can't happen another way, but because it just creates an experience of greater ease, which is why I think what happens is like when there ends up being that focus on peace, on not needing it to happen, on detaching from the results, of letting go, that whole part of the manifestation aspect, well, that's why. Because like you can release the resistance and the tension. So already just having that open up energetically, it can be helpful. That opens more space for something else to happen. Like that openness might create a greater ease to be able to like navigate and handle that other momentum, or to make some other pivots and shifts, or to carry it in a different way. Perhaps that release actually allows you to be stronger, and maybe things can move a little bit quicker, but you have to watch where that quickness is coming from. Like, is it that things are just happen to be moving quickly, or are you forcing it? Are you needing it to? Because again, we go back to just like, again, physics, that force and the counter force. That's why that force is so often not helpful. Or if you're gonna do it, you gotta go. And that's when we kind of, I think, get into like that hustle mode mentality and just go, 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 go. I'm assuming that you're not in that mode if you're focusing on how to manifest things without doing like that, right? It does require patience. But as Mark Mezadourian has said, just because it requires patience doesn't mean that things move slowly. It's more of a state and an experience and an energetic embodiment. And I'm mindful to not necessarily go into this idea of like, oh yeah, well, when I let it go, it comes. I can't stand that. I cannot stand it. And while that happens for some people, absolutely, and that's great, it is not always that way for everyone. And even when it is, sometimes it's not instantaneous. Sometimes it became a way that they ended up living for a while, you know, and other times like people didn't let go and the thing still occurred. So there is an element, there's absolutely a truth to a release, an openness for sure. And just be mindful, I guess, of what you're attaching to the result of that. Because I know for a long time I was in this mode of like, well, I just want to let go so it can happen. So it's like, it wasn't really a true letting go or detachment. I was trying to do it for a certain purpose. That doesn't work. That doesn't help. That's not the thing, you know, unless again, you have your appointed time and it just syncs up like that, then great. But as a full principle to live by, I don't think that doing it so you can get is the thing. It requires the full surrender and full release. And not that it will still happen right away, even if you do that, okay? You might just be gone, and you might just let it go, and it's not even to return. Okay, so let's see, checking my notes, Yep, sometimes just small changes can be monumental. Other times it takes more, and I think that's a product of kind of where you are in your journey, what's already been going on. There's a number of factors. At any given moment, you know, it can be a small change that unlocks everything. And other times it's just a different thing, right? It's just about where you are, like what's going on in your process. All right, so let's see. This is going a little bit longer than I anticipated, but it's kind of a big topic, so here we are. All right, so at the end of the day, again, remember, the miracle can happen, things can happen, there are endless possibilities, timeline shifts and collapses can happen, and keep taking the necessary action. Look at where the pain points are. How can you take the course that will provide the least amount of pain? And not in terms of bypassing, but it's like, okay, like what is the, you know, if we're talking about, again, employment and the dream and how you want to be able to work, like what is the most viable option for you, even if it's not something you like that much. And that sounds, I'm not going to go into that because I actually would want to give a much more specific video. But what all that to say is, there also just is a reality where the pain is going to push you to a point, and I've experienced this myself, where like everything was too painful and life had to start over, and life had to completely start over from scratch, and there was just no option but to do the thing that was not great for my nervous system and the thing I didn't want to do. And that has happened on a number of occasions. And so there's just a reality that like life will show you, life will teach you. It's until we reach that point of life teaching us, sometimes it becomes hard to make that pivot, because it can be hard to like choose to go into the pain until we're forced into it, which I think is pretty natural. I think it makes a lot of sense. And sometimes that's just the path. And other times maybe we have an openness where it's like, oh, I could do this thing, but I really don't want to. And that's usually earlier on. I would encourage, if it's possible, like take that, do it, start applying these other principles. You're going to save yourself a lot if you can do it before you've continued so far down the path that there's only coming back after there's collapse, because that's a thing. Okay, let's see here. That doesn't seem necessary right now. We talked about that. All right, 24 minutes. You know, I was gonna do. All right, I'm gonna end this now. You know what? I'm gonna pause so I can think. Hold on. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end this video now. I have a reading some card pulls that I wanted to give for the person who finds themselves like in this right now, where the things that I'm saying like is just completely speaking to them. Keep an eye out. My next video that I release is going to be exactly for that person. And what I will do is I will put that video in a link to that video in this description after I've posted it. So honestly, I'll end up posting that at the latest tomorrow. So the day that this is released, if you're watching it on that day, cool. Thank you. And check back like the next day or in a couple days or something, and see and find that link, because I want to do that reading for you, and I want to keep this video not overly long so people don't want to not watch it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this at all, if it spoke to you, if it resonated, if you made it this far, thanks for hanging in with me. I hope you got something from it, and if you did, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting. It really helps the algorithm push stuff out for me and let people know, hey, like, this is worth watching. So I mean, of course it's worth watching, but you know, there's the algorithm thing. So anyway, thanks, friends. And please, if you have any questions or thoughts or any of your own lessons that you've learned in relation to this, please drop it below, and keep me posted. And I'd love to have a conversation, for sure, an ongoing conversation about it. And if there's another video that you'd like me to make around this kind of stuff, please let me know. Happy to oblige. So, all right, friends, take care. God bless, or source bless, or whoever bless. Just bless. Sending you love and strength and peace and serenity. And I'll see you in the next one.